All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Hey, how y'all doing? I am Mike D, aka DDE80, aka 13 One of the World, aka Mike DZ. How y'all doing today? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling on this Wednesday? I'm doing a special request on the count of one of my boys. Shout out to the Point Place player. Shout out to my little niece, Navia. Shout out to my homeboy, little homeboy, Beezy. Shout out to B.Ray. And B.Ray might be interested in this one because I remember he used to watch Bret Hart as well. And that's what we're going to talk about. Instead of the top 10 greatest matches of Bret Hart's career, I'm going to talk about the top 20 matches of Bret Hart's career, all the way from 20 on the way down to number one. And I'm going to get with some of these matches. There's some matches that a lot of people didn't see that you could see on the WWE Peacock Network as well as on YouTube. A lot of Bret Hart matches are on there. And I want you to check them out for yourself. The, you know, the bonus match that was an honorable mention was a match between Bret Hart and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a few accolades of Bret Hart before I get started with this. This was a bonus match where Bret Hart did win. Bret Hart is a former five-time WWE champion. He's a former WCW champion. He's a former WCW and WWE United States champion. He's a former WCW tag team champion with Bill Goldberg, as well as a tag team champion with the Hart Foundation, which was him and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Bret Hart was a Intercontinental champion. I think he was a two-time Intercontinental champion, if I'm not mistaken. King of the Ring, Royal Rumble winner, all the accolades, and he's also a two-time Hall of Famer, where he was inducted by himself and also inducted as a member of the Hart Foundation with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Bret Hart is one of my favorite wrestlers, no doubt about it. I grew up watching Bret the Hitman Hart because I always liked his style in the ring. He was very careful when he was wrestling. He did not injure people in the ring or nothing like that. He was very potent and very crisp in the ring when he wrestled. It's a shame that Bret Hart ended up having a stroke and a concussion that ended his wrestling career back in 99, 2000 in his match against Goldberg. But still in all, Bret Hart is one of the best wrestlers in the game. And he does get his flowers from me. I would have loved to have seen him and Hogan fight, but he didn't have an opportunity to fight Hogan that much. They had a match in WCW, but it was just a con match, which really wasn't about anything. But number 21, which is an honorable mention, is the match with him and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Great matches between them back in the late 80s. You can look for that match on YouTube as well as on the WWE Peacock Network, and you will see the match between Bret Hart and Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Shout out to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. He's also one of my favorites. He's also a Hall of Famer as well. Number 20, a tag team title match. This was going on in the late 80s as well. The Hart Foundation, which was Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, bless his soul, bless Jim the Anvil Neidhart's soul, against the Rockers. Man, I tell you like this, it's Shawn Michaels and Mark Jannetty. They had just came off a run where they were the Midnight Rockers in AWA, excuse me, let me make sure I get that right, AWA. They were the tag team champions over there. They came to the WWE and they ended up getting fired for being drunk or something. Something Shawn Michaels said happened with them, but they came back and they never won the tag team titles on television. They did win them, but the rope had broke. So Vince decided to throw the match out between them and the Hart Foundation. But you will see the Hart Foundation and the Rockers had great matches between them. So you can look for those on YouTube as well as the documentary DVDs, as well as on Peacock with the tag team matches between the Hart Foundation and the Rockers. Those are some great matches. And that also jump-started the rivalry between HBK and the Hitman Bret Hart. You'll see all that happen as I go on with the rest of this. Okay, number 19, Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart. Now, Bret Hart and Roddy Piper had a match in WCW. I think it was for the United States title. But that match don't compare to the match that they had in WWF at a WrestleMania. One of the greatest Intercontinental title matches there was. Roddy Piper had the run as the Intercontinental Champion. But Bret Hart was the shining star at that time. So they decided to put the Intercontinental title on Bret Hart because they saw that Bret was starting to become the star. Vince saw Bret Hart as a new generation type wrestler. And as you can see, Bret Hart started becoming the guy that Vince wanted him to be, the man. But that match happened at WrestleMania, either WrestleMania 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of them. But go on WWE Peacock, why I keep saying WWE Peacock. Go on the Peacock network and you'll just type in Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper and that match should show up. Or look on YouTube, it's on there. That's number 19, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper. Number 18, Bret Hart versus DDP. Great matches between them. Bret Hart could get in the ring and just make everybody he's wrestling look good. And he made DDP look good because DDP put him in a diamond cutter. Those matches happened in WCW. Bret Hart was giving back, but DDP was starting to become the top tier star that they had been looking in him for a long time. So that match is also on Peacock. DDP versus Bret the Hitman Hart. I think it's for a title, the United States title. I can't remember, but I think it's on there. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the next, number 17, Bret Hart versus The Miz for the United States title. Now, in this match, the reason why it's one of my favorite matches is because The Miz talked all this trash to Bret Hart. Just talk. And at the time, and still to this day, Bret Hart can't take getting hit on the back of his head because of the concussion and because of the stroke he had. He has like a hole in his head or something, he was saying. But it was interesting to see The Miz go in there and try to, defend his U.S. title. And Bret Hart just beat him and became the WWE United States champion. Wow. That was a great accomplishment by Bret the Hitman Hart to win that title after being put in the WWE Hall of Fame. That's one of my favorite matches. It's actually a laughable match. It was on a Raw back in 2011 or 2012, one of them. And that's also on YouTube or Peacock. Also, another favorite one of mine, number 16, was Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania. Man, Vince McMahon got the you-know-what beat out of him. And Bret Hart just put him in the sharpshooter. But the storyline was interesting because Vince was talking all this crap. This is when Bret first came back to WWE after 12 years. Vince came out there and was showing him love and then kicked him straight in the cojones. kicked him straight between his legs, and that's what jumped off the storyline. They was hurting Bret, had Bret Hart walking with a cast on his leg, and then when he took the cast off, it was so funny because Stone Cold Steve Austin was in the mix of the situation as well. That's also on YouTube as well as Peacock. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Vince McMahon. Number 15, Bret Hart versus Goldberg. Bill Goldberg was the world champion at the time, and when they beat Bret Hart, when Bret Hart beat Goldberg, this was when they were bringing back the NWO for like the 5th, 6th time in WCW. And this time Bret Hart was the world champion, so he was the leader of the new NWO. It was a crappy idea for them to do, but it was good to see Bret Hart back in leadership, back doing something, kind of meaningful. And when he won the title, he cheated Bill Goldberg to win the title because he was walking around hurt and all that stuff. And in the end, he just feigned his injury, and they just did a number on Bill Goldberg. But Bill Goldberg was the one that ended Bret Hart's career. Keep that in mind. But this was before that happened, and you could catch that on the WCW pay-per-view on Peacock as well as on YouTube as well. And that's when Bret Hart had won the WCW title, but also he was also a tag team champion with Bill Goldberg as well. Number 14, Sting versus Bret Hart. Now, you guys know how I feel about Sting. Sting's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and he was going up against another one of my favorites in Bret the Hitman Hart. They had some great matches as they were contending for the U.S. title when Bret Hart had it. They were also contending for the world title when Sting won the title from Bret Hart because of the injury. Those were some great times. Also, those matches are also on the WCW part of Peacock with Bret Hart and Sting. Don't get me wrong, I liked it to see those matches between Bret Hart and Sting. It was some fresh rivalries, some fresh, faces against each other. So you could look that up as well, and you'll enjoy those matches between Bret Hart and the man they call Sting. Number 13, Bret Hart versus the Patriot. Kind of a unrated match, but Dale Wilkes was good for who he was. He was the Patriot. Dale Wilkes, had a great, a kind of good career, wrestling career, but him going up against Bret Hart made it so better. Bret Hart made him look like $1 million, but Bret Hart, in the end, was the man. And Bret Hart, when he gets in the ring and competes, he gives it his all. So the Patriot got the rub off of Bret Hart, but I'm here to tell you, Bret Hart was the bigger star. Number 12, one of my favorites, Bret Hart against Jerry the King Lawler. This all started King of the Ring 1993. Bret Hart had just beat Curt Hennig, aka Mr. Perfect, God bless his soul. And Bret Hart was getting crowned as the King of the Ring. He had the scepter, the robe, and everything. And Jerry the King came out there and just destroyed the whole thing. Just tore up the whole coronation, just tore up the crown, everything. Bret Hart was losing to Jerry the King Lawler. Then William Shatner had got involved with the storyline, Captain Kirk. They were calling Jerry the King Burger King. And they had some great rivalries, some great matches, some great, situations was going on between them. Some great chemistry in the ring. But in the end, the last match they had was Jerry the King Lawler versus Bret Hart in a Kiss My feet match. And in the end, so disgusting. But in the end, Jerry the King Lawler had to kiss his own feet because his feet was looking disgusted and busted. But in the end, Bret Hart won the Kiss My Foot match where he had to kiss Bret Hart's feet and then had his own feet put in his mouth. And I think that's at an In Your House pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. I think. But I know it was going on Raw and everything because also Jerry Lawler was on there bagging on Bret Hart's family and stuff like that, which I think is not what's up in the business, but they do it a lot. They try to get heat on each other and try to make the story a little bit interesting, more interesting. But, wow. It is what it is. But that's also a great match as well. Number 11. The Canadian Crippler, Chris Benoit versus Bret Hart in Kansas City of 1999, if I'm not mistaken, on a WCW Nitro. At the time, Owen Hart had passed when he died at WWF. Bret Hart had a Nitro show coming up in Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where the incident happened. And they had the matchup, one of the greatest solid matches of all, Chris Benoit versus Bret the Hitman Hart. And Bret the Hitman Hart and Chris Benoit put on a great show, a great match. I know that a lot of people don't want to talk about Chris Benoit right now, but Chris Benoit was a great wrestler. Despite what he did to his family, or despite what happened with him and all that stuff there, Chris Benoit was a great wrestler. He was a great technical wrestler, folks. And because of that, Chris Benoit gets his flowers here with this match. He did everything he could to try to make the situation better for Bret because they know Bret was going through mourning the death of Owen Hart. It was great. It's great for business. Great. Very, very entertaining match. I think it's on Nitro 1999. I think that's when it happened. You guys have to go on Peacock and just type in Benoit versus Bret Hart. You'll see it on there. You'll enjoy it. You'll like it. You'll like everything that you see. You'll like the whole match. A great solid match between Benoit and Bret the Hitman Hart. Also, number 10. Great matchup here where you people will probably like, and you like, really? Did that match really happen? Yes, it did. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Rocky Maivia for the Intercontinental title. Of course, Rocky Maivia, who is now known as The Rock, aka Dwayne Johnson, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. At the time, he was just solid Rocky Maivia. And he had an Intercontinental title match against Bret the Hitman Hart in 1997 on Monday Night Raw. A very interesting match, ladies and gentlemen. A very interesting match. I'm not going to tell you what happened. I just want you to type it in and look for that match. Bret Hart versus Rocky Maivia, 1997 Raw's War. I guarantee you, you will like that match. You will like what you see, and you will like what happened in that match. I'm through with the top 10, but I will give you another honorable mention. Bret Hart had a match. A lot of people don't understand this, but Bret Hart had a match. Bret Hart had a match against somebody that was not on this list. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And Steamboat and Hart put on a great match. Those were in the early years of Bret Hart, the early years of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat when he was still in the WWF, WWE. And you'll see those matches. You'll be like straight technical wrestling went on with that match between Steamboat and Bret Hart. At the time, Bret Hart was still trying to get his feet up under the business, and Steamboat had already been established. But Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the business. I don't care what anybody says. As pure as it is, Ricky Steamboat has it. Ricky Steamboat is in my book, one of the most underrated wrestlers in the game, because Ricky Steamboat did a lot for the business. Whether he was in WWE, WCW, NWA, you're talking about a Hall of Famer and a former WCW champion. I think he was a United States champion, television champion, something like that. But Ricky Steamboat had Continental champion who can forget about the match he had at WrestleMania 3 with the late great Macho Man Randy Savage. Was one of the greatest intercontinental title matches I ever seen in my life. And I don't say that too much about matches. I say they're very great. But that was the greatest, in my book, one of the greatest intercontinental title matches I've ever seen in my career. Seeing Randy Savage go one-on-one with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And with that being said, Bret Hart and Ricky Steamboat also had some great matches going on in their career as well. And especially that match between those two guys, like back in 1986, if I'm not mistaken, in the Boston Garden or somewhere they was at. It was a great match. It was a great concept of the match, a great thing to see, and a great match to watch. So you see, like I said before, Bret Hart, he's one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the game. You don't have too many technical wrestlers in the game like that. I think Drew Gulak is one of them right now in my book. It's just pure great technical because he has it as well as Daniel Bryan, aka Bryan Danielson. You know, you got some technical wrestlers that could just go in there and put on great technical matches. Kurt Angle, shout out to Kurt Angle. Shout out to, a lot of guys that were just known for their technical wrestling. Chris Benoit was a technical wrestler, So I know a lot of people don't want to talk about him, but he was a technical wrestler. He was a great technical wrestler, Chris Benoit was, the Canadian Crippler. Also, that's basically some of the honorable mentions. That was just an honorable mention, a bonus for you guys to look at Bret Hart versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Also, Bret Hart versus Jeff Jarrett was a great match. Those are just some of the hidden gem matches that you could look for on WWE Peacock. I keep saying WWE Peacock, but Peacock app, Peacock channel, as well as the Hart Foundation up against the Nasty Boys. Those are some honorable mentions as well. The Legion of Doom, I think the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, God bless their souls. I think they had a match with the Hart Foundation. I know the Hart Foundation against Demolition, if I'm not mistaken. Those were some great matches in Bret Hart's career of wrestling. And that's just the first half of it. Tomorrow, when I come on, I will do the second half of the Bret Hart, the top 10 matches of Bret Hart's, my top 10 of Bret Hart's career. You're gonna love these because these are more detailed to hear about. And until then, have a good day. God bless you. God keep you. Fade away. That's part one, buddy. I'm going to do part 2 tomorrow just for you. Holla at your boy. Holla at everybody later. God bless you. God keep you. I'm out.